What's going on, guys? Today we are going to be talking about the golden pyramid of weight loss. Usually there's 5 steps or 5 focuses. I threw in another one because I feel like it's useful to discuss. So that's what we're going to go over today. If you are watching this live, do hashtag live as usual. If you're watching it replayed, do hashtag replay. Just kind of lets me know, who's watching, who's using the information, which is great. If you do also have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Some of you guys have DM'd me, which is awesome. I think that's great too. Either way works great. But if you have a question, odds are somebody else probably has a question. So it could be useful to kind of create that community. The other cool thing is I do have a free group if you are interested. That's where I post these videos / a lot of other content, kind of building a community around people that want to better themselves, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the whole combined. So the link to that that group will be in the top part of the video, the little link there. And then, like always, if you're watching this replay, do hashtag replay. If you're watching it live, hashtag live. So let's dive right in. No further ado, especially because this one might be a little bit longer just because there's so much to talk about. But I'll try to be brief, but sometimes that's not my forte when it comes to these types of topics because I'm so passionate about it and I feel like it can help a lot of people. So let's get into it. Number one thing, surprise, surprise, when you're trying to lose weight, the number one thing that matters is that you are in a calorie deficit. I will forever hound this topic because it is the most important thing when you are trying to lose weight, get shredded, lose some holiday poundage, whatever the case is, swimsuit season, no matter what. If you're trying to lose weight, calorie deficit is king. Doesn't matter anything else, calorie deficit is the number one thing. But how much should you be cutting in terms of calories each day to bring the average of your caloric deficit down, all right? So according to your maintenance level, you should be about 500 to 1,000 calories lower than that per day to lose, give or take, 2 pounds per week, which is, in the fitness community, a sustainable weight loss. Now that is just kind of the start. That's kind of what we have as a benchmark or a starting point or whatever the case is. But from there, everybody is different. Everybody's metabolism is different. Everybody digests food a little bit different. Everybody moves and has a different, perspires differently, expends energy differently. So this is legitimately just a starting point. And we talked last week about when you're stuck in a plateau, whereas if you haven't seen any progress, you've been consistent and haven't seen progress in 4 to 6 weeks, then you can start manipulating things. So this is just kind of a starting point. Start off with 500 calories a day deficit. Do that for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. See what happens. Be consistent with it. Write it down. Make sure that you're actually hitting those numbers, and then see what your body does with it. If you need to bump it up a little bit because you want to see faster results, that's awesome. Go ahead and bump it up a little bit. Especially in the beginning, if you're starting a weight loss journey, it's very important to see kind of the quick wins, the quick results to start, because that gives you energy and motivation to keep going, if that makes sense. Once again, if you're watching live, hashtag live. If you're watching it replayed, hashtag replay. So number one thing is calorie deficit. Up the chain is protein intake. So you should be consuming about 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per body pound. I'm about 210 on a given day, so I try to consume around like 190 to 200 grams of protein. Sometimes I have to use supplements to get there, and that's what we'll talk about in a little bit. But I try to get that from whole foods, right? Lean chicken, pork, beef, legumes, protein shakes are good. I try to stay away from dairy just because my stomach doesn't do the best with it. But dairy products are great to get some added protein in there as well. So protein intake, the reason that this is the most important in terms of macronutrients, and you don't see like carb intake being right here. I love carbs, nothing against carbs, not about that. But the reason that protein intake is so important is because protein has the best satiation rate, which essentially means if you eat protein, because your body digests it a little bit differently, or it's a little bit harder to digest, it also manipulates what your blood sugar does when you consume protein. It essentially makes you feel fuller for longer. So a good rule of thumb is have protein at every single meal. And on top of that, if you're ever going to consume a carb, right, because carbs boost the insulin, if you consume a protein with it, which kind of buffers that, your insulin won't get spiked as high because your body's also trying to digest the protein. The other reason that this is important is because when we are in a calorie deficit, your body wants to break down stored fat and protein as fuel. But what we don't want it to do is break down our hard-earned muscle for fuel, right? Because otherwise then we'll just become a skinny fat, which is not what we're looking to do. We're looking to tone, we're looking to lose fat, not muscle. So by consuming more protein, it keeps the muscle staying there a little bit more because it does increase muscle protein synthesis, which we'll talk a little bit more in this next section. But that's why it's the most important thing, is because we want our body to be getting enough protein to hold on to our muscle while we're in a calorie deficit state so that we don't lose our muscle, we primarily burn fat. I hate to say it, but if you are in a calorie deficit, it's a lot harder to maintain your muscle mass like across the board, but there are things that we can do to make sure that we lose majority fat and hold on to as much muscle as possible. Next thing that we're going to talk about is weightlifting. So I've gotten a bad rap for hating on cardio, because I personally don't do the traditional types of cardio where you hop on a treadmill and you just hate your life and you pound the pavement. If you enjoy that, awesome, good for you. Your heart is probably thanking you for that. However, I don't think that it's completely necessary. One day I'll post, I have a little Fitbit, a Fitbit Versa, and I'll post some of my workouts, what my heart rate is doing during my workouts, where I'm only lifting weights. And you'll see that if you do it a certain way, then you can actually technically get your cardio in while you're lifting weights. But the reason that lifting weights, I don't have anything against cardio, but I enjoy lifting weights a lot more. And I feel like a lot of other people do. And if you don't, you should ask me questions about that, because it's definitely the most important. You should be lifting about 2 to 5 times per week, focusing on the larger muscle groups and heavy compound movements. So a compound movement is using more than one joint. So a bicep curl is an isolated movement because it's primarily only working the bicep and you're crossing one joint, right? Versus a lat pull down or a pull up, right? You're using the shoulder joint and the elbow joint. That's considered a compound movement. And the main thing that we're trying to work in heavy compound movements is kind of the larger muscle groups. The reason behind weightlifting being the most important thing here when it comes to exercise is because while we are in a calorie deficit state, like I said, your body wants to just survive. That's its whole goal. You're reducing calories, especially after you do it for a longer period of time. It's just going to try to burn whatever fuel it has possible, and it will tap into muscle mass, right? That's kind of what we talked about with protein intake. However, if you are giving it a reason to keep your muscle, if your body understands that, hey, I actually need my muscle because I lift, because I go to the gym and I do heavy compound movements 2 to 5 times per week, your body will say, hey, well, let's not burn the muscle because we actually use that. Let's go after the fat. The other thing that lifting weights does is it ramps up muscle protein synthesis, right? So as you break down the muscle and then rebuild it from the food that we eat, the protein that we eat, it increases muscle protein synthesis, which essentially is just driving protein into the muscles, which is what we're going for, because then you'll hold on to the muscle mass versus it taking away, right? Once again, we don't want to be the skinny fat. We want to be toned, shredded, good looking. That's what we're going for. So lifting weights is the most important when it comes to exercise. Lifting in the 6 to 8 rep category. 3 to 5 sets, heavy compound movements, throwing in some isolation every now and then. If you want to do some like bike or stairs or whatever to kind of warm up, 5-10 minutes, awesome. If you are like die hard, you have to get your cardio in, do it at the end of your workout so that you're to not get tied too deep into it. When you lift, you also use your stored glycogen within your muscles. If you go to the cardio equipment and do 30 to 40 minutes of cardio before you lift, your lifting session will be a lot less productive because there's a lot less stored glycogen. Therefore, lift weights first, do your cardio after work. Any questions about that? Hit me in the comment section below. So we've covered calorie deficit is the most important thing, protein intake, lifting weights so that we burn primarily fat, not muscle, no fat skinny. Next thing is sleep. So 6 to 9 hours, and I say 6 to 9 hours, but I'm probably getting around like 4 or so right now, and my wife's getting about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on how Wilder's doing. But the reason that sleep is so important is because hormones do play a role in fat loss, in recovery, in muscle gain. It really does dictate a lot. Once again, I've gotten a bad rap on saying that calorie deficit is the only thing that matters, because there are other things that matter. I just think that we need to place more of an emphasis on this and not using hormones or hormonal imbalance as a excuse. There are people that legitimately have issues with it. I totally get that. However, I feel like a lot of people that use that as an excuse haven't tried these things for 6 months consistently, and therefore they've not seen the results because they're either not self-aware enough and actually track everything, or take responsibility for not being in calorie deficit. So I'll hop off my soapbox now. But the reason that sleep is so important is because 1, you need to recover from your weightlifting sessions. 2, you are in a calorie deficit, which means like food is just energy, right? If you're not eating as much food, you're not going to have as much energy, which therefore it's going to make it harder for you to stay in a calorie deficit if you're not getting your energy other places with your sleep and your recovery. So sleep is so important. It also helps with balancing of the stress, the catabolic and the anabolic hormones, the fight or flight versus the rest and digest. So make sure that you're getting 6 to 9 hours of sleep, especially if you are trying to lose weight. It's just going to help a ton with cortisol levels and everything like that, raises testosterone, all that good stuff. So sleep. Then here we have cardio, precious cardio, right? Really not that important in terms of, yes, it is good for your heart. Yes, there are a lot of really great athletes that you have to do your cardio. Yes, it can be a tool in burning more calories throughout the day. However, it doesn't increase muscle protein synthesis, which means it's just your body's just going to get the fuel for wherever it can, which sometimes can be your muscles. It doesn't increase muscle protein synthesis. It doesn't add any increased muscle mass anywhere, except for possibly your legs, but not really, because you're burning calories while you're doing it, unless you're doing like crazy stairs and stuff or something. The reason that cardio isn't as effective is because as soon as you hop off the cardio machine and your body temperature returns to normal, it doesn't have as, you might burn more calories. Let's just take all else being even. See, cardio, evil, right there, slip of the tongue. With cardio, let's say you do 30 minutes of cardio. You might burn more calories in that 30 minutes than if you were to do 30 minutes of weightlifting. However, weightlifting has a afterburn effect, which means that you'll burn more calories once you're done working, because your body has to regulate your oxygen levels. Post-exercise oxygen consumption is what it's actually called. That's greater with weightlifting. But the main thing that I want to focus on is the fat skinny sort of a thing. Like you want to, especially women are so afraid of lifting weights and getting bulky. Here's the reality of the situation, or getting too big. I've been trying to get too big for the past 20 some odd years, and it hasn't happened yet, right? I'm a male, I eat pretty big, I lift a good amount, and I have not become too big. So with women, with the lack of testosterone and the increase of estrogen, you're never gonna get too big unless you like do so many steroids and spend your entire life in the gym and literally eat nothing but protein. That's the only way that you're gonna get too big. However, the girls that look really good in the gym, if you notice, they're actually lifting weights. They're actually lifting weights. They actually eat like that is very, very a very plausible thing. If you go to the gym and you do nothing but cardio and you've looked the same for the past 3 years, it might be time to change, right? We all know those people in the gym. We all know those people in the gym that have been on the cardio equipment. They're always there. They're there when you get there. They're there when you leave. They've looked the exact same for the past 3 to 17 years. And it's because all they do is cardio and they never touch weights. And I'm not saying go to the gym and do, I'm talking to the women here, and do 5 sets of 15. That's garbage. You need to be getting close to failure, like within 1 to 2 reps of failure. So if you're not getting that within your 4 to 8 reps, 3 to 5 sets, you need to up the weight. You need to lift more safely with good range of motion, warm up properly beforehand, but you need to be lifting heavier. So that's my rant on cardio. This last part isn't technically in the golden pyramid of weight loss, but I really think it needs to be talked about, is supplements. Having owned a supplement company myself, supplements are useful, but they are like this little cherry on top. If all of these things aren't like 80 to 90% complete, adding $300 a month worth of supplements isn't going to do crap for you. Those fat burners, pretty much all it is caffeine and diuretics. There's not really any ingredient that's going to help you burn stubborn body fat or whatever the case is. Like, you can't spot reduce. If you go and you have flabby arms and you do tricep extensions, that's just going to build out your triceps. That's not going to burn fat in your triceps. There's literally no way to spot reduce. So the supplements that I would recommend, having some type of protein, whether that's whey or whey is like the best in terms of the amino acid content. My stomach can't handle it, so I do a Orgain, like vegan protein to get a little bit extra protein. So a protein supplement, awesome. I think everybody should be on creatine. It's really, really inexpensive, especially if your stomach can handle monohydrate, which most people's can. Protein, creatine. I love caffeine. I'm not shy about that. Doing some type of pre-workout that is a quality pre-workout. If you have any questions about quality pre-workouts, or set them in the comment section below. A quality pre-workout, a protein supplement, and creatine is really, that's about it. Like, there are some nootropics that can help with mental state and stuff like that, which I definitely use. But in terms of fat loss, you don't need to be taking a fat burner. You don't need to be taking a CLA. You don't need to be taking BCAAs, branched chain amino acids, especially if your protein intake is where it's supposed to be. You don't need BCAAs, plain and simple. And I've sold people BCAAs before I knew better. So really, pre-workout, protein, creatine, and that's about it. The others might give you a 2% gain or increase things a little bit, but in reality, supplements don't necessarily matter. The main thing is the calorie deficit, protein intake from quality sources, lifting heavy 2 to 5 times per week, getting enough sleep, doing your cardio if you absolutely have to. And this calorie deficit, I don't care where you get it from. If you like intermittent fasting, awesome. If you like doing keto, great. If you like doing, if it fits your macro, if you like doing high carb, low carb, vegan,